What's up guys, this video is going to be about opposition in chess. Opposition is just when two kings are one square away from each other and they're just preventing each other from pushing forward like this. This is important for positions like this where we have traded down all of our pieces and we have one pawn left and we're trying to get that pawn to the end of the board to win the game. So understanding opposition a lot of the times can be the difference between winning a game and drawing a game. So now the white king here can move into d5 and now we could say that it has opposition on black. So black is now forced to either go to either one of these sides or take a step back, and as he moves away from this file, now we can start to take over this file. If black wants to come back to the file, we can have opposition on black again, and we can force black off of this file and eventually push our pawn up the board and get a queen. There's no way for black to now re-enter this file, and now we can push all the way up to a queen and win the game. So now let's look at a very similar position, but now black is going to have opposition on white. You see, if white tries to move up, he's 2 squares away from black. Black can now move down and he would have opposition on white. When white moves to the side, black can also move to the side and maintain opposition. And now you may be wondering, can't white just push his pawn and now wouldn't white have opposition? Well, not quite, because now black can move back into the center and white's not going to be able to advance from here. So if white goes back, black can maintain opposition by playing d5. If white tries to retake opposition by going around the pawn, black can just go straight back and there will be no way for white to retake this opposition. White can't push his pawn right now because then he would just lose it. So if white tries to bring the king up, now black can just retake opposition and there's no way for white to advance. And you may be thinking, can't white just push his pawn and then continue to protect it with his king? Black can just go right back to defending that pawn. And now it's going to be that same sequence of movements. And you may be saying, well, white is getting his pawn down the board. Well, this is true, but you'll see that it'll end up in stalemate as this position continues. So white tries to retake the opposition, but black's right there to meet him. He can't advance his king, so he pushes his pawn. Black once again steps in front of the pawn, and then there's nowhere else for white to go except to defend his pawn. And then this is something you would just have to know to protect the draw as black, is whenever you're in a position like this, is to always go straight back. So you go straight back and white can't advance his pawn or he would lose it. And whichever direction he goes, let's say he goes to the left, black would just have to know to go to the left as well so that white can't advance in. So white goes to push his pawn instead, and black just hides on the end of the file. And now there's no place for white's king to go where he doesn't draw. So if he moves here, it'll be a draw because of stalemate. And then if he moves away from the pawn, he'll just lose the pawn and it'll be a draw with insufficient material. So that's the concept of opposition. Just one more thing I want to point out is that this concept doesn't really work when the pawn is on the A file or the H file. So let's look at this position now. So white can take the opposition with king to A5, and there's no way for the black king to move up the board, but that's not necessary. So long as the black king stays on this file, it's going to be impossible for white to push his pawn all the way through. You see that the black king can't get to the end of the board, so at this point it would just end up being a draw so long as the king stays in the corner. Because there's no way to kick the king out, eventually it would just end up in a stalemate like this. So if the king were to move away, now the black king can just come in and take this pawn and it'll be a draw with insufficient material. So understanding a position like this, where if it's white to move, we can take opposition and win a game, this is entirely different than a position like this, where we move the king, we don't have opposition, and if black plays perfectly, we'll end up in a draw. So not only is this good for winning games that you should win, this is also good to know when you're down a pawn and you need to protect your draw. So this is opposition in chess, and thank you for watching the video.